If technology is a drug, and it does feel like a drug, then what precisely are the side effects? This was the original question Charlie Brooker posed when introducing Black Mirror back in 2011. But 6 seasons later, it appears the show's writer is less attached to its original premise, stating that there was a slight danger that people were bracketing the series as the tech is bad show. And I found that a bit frustrating, partly because I always felt like, well, the show isn't saying tech is bad, the show is saying people are effed up. And this change in attitude definitely reflects in the new season, which feels like a creative departure from what it used to be. Change is always going to divide viewers. Some people will embrace the new direction and blossoming possibilities, and others will feel cheated, as if we're cynically smuggling in a new show under a pre-existing IP to maintain viewership. As with any anthology with no consistent characters or storyline, Black Mirror has always been a bit hit and miss. But when it hit, it felt like the most prescient and powerful show on television. And when it missed, it was never bad, just not on par with the incredibly high standards some episodes had set. But now that the show appears to be a little unsure of its identity, perhaps we should take a look at what common characteristics made the strongest episodes so unforgettable, and others merely serviceable, and then see where Season 6's installations fit in. When Black Mirror is at its best, it's highlighting how technology enables humanity's worst instincts, that as an evolving species, we're characterized by our insatiable lust for more. More access, more information, more pleasure, more safety. Chasing a perfection greater than ourselves, but in a way that sacrifices empathy for convenience and fleeting entertainment. And it seems that every time we create a product or a service to solve a problem, we inadvertently create many more. As by trying to iron out the creases in our species' capabilities, we merely alter how the horror unfolds, rather than solving it entirely. The technology may change, but we still fall victim to the same pitfalls of self-interest, narcissism, envy, lust, and wrath as we always have. The strongest episodes reflect the direction society is already trending, which allows us to recognize our current behaviors further down the line. Like in Succession writer Jesse Armstrong's episode, The Entire History of You, it depicts a world similar to our own with one key change. That everything you see is recorded by a device in your eye, and you can replay all those memories anytime you want. It's a horrifying concept, as if this product was available, many would find it hard to resist. But access to this level of information would make us even less present, and instead lead to an obsession over every microscopic detail of our social interactions, as well as allowing us to live in the comforting memories of the past more than we already do. Season 2's Be Right Back handles a similar theme of not letting go, but reframes it around our impulse to avoid the pain of loss. After her boyfriend Ash dies, Martha is so grief-stricken that she chooses to opt out of that reality by using an app that recreates his personality by combining all of his social media responses, phone calls, and emails. But because we can never have enough, this goes from text responses to voice calls to a fully fleshed out robot programmed to behave just like him. It's completely understandable why this service would exist and why people would use it, as some grieving people currently resort to hiring charlatan mediums to speak to their loved ones. On paper, it's a beautiful idea. Whether it be a breakup or a death, no relationship ever has to end. And this is what Black Mirror thrives at, capturing how technology atomizes the individual as we become addicted to consuming content and living in our own alternative reality, as our intuitive instinct to feel in control and comfortable overrides everything else. While these episodes point to how we can be our own worst enemies, some of the darker yet still strong episodes demonstrate the unique horrors that technology has introduced to us. For example, Shut Up and Dance captures how vulnerable we are to hacking and sextortion, that we can be so possessed by the fear and shame of being exposed for our darkest secrets that we're willing to commit more crimes in an attempt to preserve our reputation. In the national anthem, we see how the public pressure of social media enables our lust for ritualistic humiliation, that as long as we're not the victim, we embrace the power of the mob, and are voyeuristically unable to look away from the human car crash that we're helping to create. And Metalhead depicts what feels like a soon-to-be reality, where instead of our fellow man, we could be policed by soulless robots that will hunt us forever without getting distracted or tired. Try as we might, we're just no match for a robot programmed to defeat us. Now, if all of that sounds horribly bleak and cynical, that's because it is. But Black Mirror at its best can also occasionally delve into the more positive possibilities of technology. Take San Junipero as an example. Naturally, we all fear getting older and dying, but what if we could continue to live forever in a simulation where we're still young and vivacious, finally getting to be an old soul in a young body? Given it's only for the very old and deceased, it's handing us an idealistic lifeline at the point where there's nothing left. Although this concept may only truly appeal to the non-religious, it leaves you with a rush of hope and enthusiasm, which is a scarce commodity in Black Mirror. Or in Hang the DJ, Brooker turns romantic relationships on their head, where instead of the trials and tribulations of dating, now there's an app that makes all the decisions for you. It sets you up with a partner and even tells you how long you'll end up with that person, whether it be hours, months, or years. This provides fun social commentary on our desire to export such important decisions to an app, but also speaks to the real-life absurdity of relationships and the philosophy of everything happens for a reason, where partners are placed with people they want to see more of for just a few hours, or forced to waste a full year with someone they're not that into, until they choose to take their fate into their own hands. This episode manages to add insight to the human experience, and rather than reinforcing that technology is the enemy, it instead leaves the impression that it can just be a helping hand along the way. All of these episodes tap into our core emotional interests, either because we identify with the characters and why they fall into these technological traps, or because they help to unlock our deepest, seemingly impossible desires, or because they trigger our darkest fears, and we feel as if we're watching a nightmare unfold. This makes a notably cold and sinister series still feel deeply personal, as it causes you to reevaluate your current habits and worry about your future. But on top of being conceptually interesting, they're also well-structured character studies, with twists and turns and creative storytelling enabled by the novel technology. But of course, not every episode of Black Mirror can be great. Let's start with the mediocre. Due to the bleak nature of the show, a lot of episodes are a watch once situation, but can stick with you for long after, even though the episode itself isn't that great. For instance, horror episodes like Metalhead and White Bear are just characters running away from danger the entire time. They're compelling in the way any horror story is, and do contain flashes of brilliant social commentary along the way. But experientially, they're somewhat tedious, as we're not that invested in the characters, nor do we really understand what's going on. And once we have that answer, yes, the imagery sticks with you, but there's no major instinct to go back and watch it again. Having re-examined the series, I can understand why Charlie Brooker is struggling to write new episodes centered around tech, as sometimes there are elements of the story that are truly captivating, but there's still not quite enough substance to warrant a full episode. But because you don't want to overload the audience with too many ideas or inconsistent themes, you need to stretch it out for one anyway. This makes the piece quite predictable, as once you get the message of the episode quite early on, like, whoa, this tech is really not good, you're now just watching it unfold, which can sometimes feel like a public safety announcement.
I heard that you make these things that way. Addictive.
For example, Archangel is about helicopter parenting, as an overbearing mother uses technology to keep her daughter away from all forms of harm. There are interesting concepts at play here, but the episode has peaked within the first 10 minutes and never finds a new twist or turn to keep us invested. Or in Men Against Fire, the army install an implant that makes the enemy look and sound like infected monsters, so that their soldiers have no problem killing them. This is a physical manifestation of the impact training and propaganda have in dehumanizing the enemy. So it's a strong concept with a straightforward "war is bad" message. But by the end of the first act, you've figured the twist out, and you're just waiting for the character to catch up with you. It would have been better if the twist had come later, after a truly compelling story that challenged you to interrogate your feelings afterwards. This way the audience could have mixed feelings about the implant rather than it being so cut and dry bad, which makes the episode all one note. But some episodes just fail to pull us in by never giving us anyone to identify with. For example, in Crocodile, due to the existence of a recaller device that allows you to view people's memories to solve crimes, this now means that if you want to get away with something, you need to leave no witnesses. So Mia winds up murdering several people just to get away with one lesser crime. From her ex-boyfriend to an investigator, to the investigator's husband, to the investigator's toddler. A truly dark and harrowing story, but not very insightful, enjoyable, or relatable. Or in what I would easily declare the worst episode of Black Mirror ever, Rachel, Jack and Ashley 2, instead of witnessing technology exacerbate a highly relatable personal situation, we're served up a bizarre direct-to-streaming Disney-style episode about a teenage girl trying to fit in school, who then gets a robot doll that simulates her favourite pop star's personality, but the pop star is actually being exploited and controlled by her manager, to the point she's forced into a coma and they end up rescuing her. I honestly don't know who this episode was meant to appeal to, but it certainly doesn't fit in with any other Black Mirror episodes, in tone or even theme. It could have focused on how technology enables bullying in school, or the pitfalls of parasocial relationships, but instead it was an unrealistic kids' comedy episode, where the only real stakes are that we want a pop star to be able to perform her own kind of music. And in the end, they all become friends. How precious. Not relatable, nor does it tap into any of our core emotional interests. So now that we understand what key elements bring out the best in Black Mirror and what deficiencies reveal its worst, let's investigate Season 6. Unexpectedly, out of the 5 new episodes, only 2 of them include any new technology whatsoever. The first episode, Joan is Awful, is in a light comedic style, imagining what would happen if you turned on the TV and Netflix had a show portraying your private life to the world. I found this idea more intriguing than its execution. This was the first time Black Mirror went meta, Netflix making a show about how evil Netflix could be. But the explanation of the concept was a little too convoluted. The idea that they use your phone to spy on you, and then CGI recreates it with a celebrity star in real time. Aside from the fact no one would watch this show, as it's frantically uninteresting, the character could just stop bringing her phone with her and the problem would be solved. On top of that, the whole "you agreed to these terms and conditions without reading them" plot point was already done by South Park in its Human Centipad episode.
When you downloaded the last iTunes update, a window on your screen popped up and asked you if you agreed to our terms and conditions. You clicked agree.
It was a pretty shallow exploration of the concept of privacy, and used more as an opportunity to throw some celebrity names in for the sake of it than to say anything new or meaningful. Perhaps it was a bit of fun, but it doesn't belong with the best. The second episode, Loch Henry, was about 2 film students embarking to make a true crime documentary that they could later sell to Netflix. Again, meta. There is some interesting social commentary on exploiting people's most painful histories for glamorous rewards, but for what could have been an intense horror episode, it lacked tension and suspense by making disappointing story choices along the way. For instance, a random head-on car crash that leaves 2 of the characters completely unharmed. And then the most haunting revelation didn't really hit as hard as it could, as instead of maximising the drama by the girlfriend getting killed by the mother and having the son uncover the truth later in a different way, she randomly trips over in a river and dies by hitting her head. And the mum, thinking she's about to be exposed, kills herself and leaves the tapes behind. An interesting premise, but no new technology or real emotional appeal or insight into our current world. Beyond that, it's weird these true crime documentaries end up so glamorized. The third episode, Beyond the Sea, was incredible. At a running time of 1 hour and 20 minutes, it felt more like cinema than TV. While admittedly the premise of two men in space that use replicas to spend time with their families on Earth was not necessarily relatable, it tapped into key human interests to keep us fully engaged. For instance, aside from the natural instinct to protect your family, the COVID experience, where some countries were still open while others were closed, made David's grief and isolation feel more identifiable. Setting the story in 1969 was another fresh creative flair, opening up new possibilities for the series. As Brooker has now proved, it doesn't just have to be set in the harrowing future, it can delve into the past and introduce one key piece of technology to change everything. While the story appeared to be heading in a predictable direction, that with only one replica left, David would kill Cliff and live as him on Earth for the rest of his days, the episode took a dark, vengeful turn instead. So for what it lacked in social commentary, it truly made up for in cinematic storytelling, putting it right up there with some of Black Mirror's very best. The fourth episode, Maisie Day, was a bit of a head-scratcher. While it appeared to be about the paparazzi's sadistic relationship with celebrity, rather than finding an overall point to make or fear to ignite, it transformed into a mindless werewolf horror flick for the final few minutes. If one were to say Black Mirror jumped the shark, this would be Exhibit A. This decision summarizes what made Season 6 so unusual. There was no consistent theme or tone. The episodes felt very singular, and in some cases, incomplete, as if we were taste testing different options of what the show could potentially become. The fifth episode, Demon 79, was classified as a Red Mirror episode, as it openly had nothing to do with technology or media. While it is very well directed as a classic British black comedy, it left behind an intense feeling of confusion. What was the point of this episode? Does it need a point? By entertainment standards, it technically doesn't, but by placing it among the other Black Mirror episodes, rather than starting a whole new series that this style fits into, it slightly boggles the mind. Between werewolves and demons, it appears the series is taking on a supernatural component that doesn't quite gel with its original mission statement. A normal episode of Black Mirror would often leave me feeling hopeless and empty, but with a renewed understanding of human nature and the unsettling risks of technology. But instead I'm watching Earth get obliterated by nuclear weapons in 1979 because a woman couldn't kill 3 innocent people in 3 days and just thinking, okay then. Despite its hit-and-miss nature, Black Mirror remains must-watch TV for its creative storytelling choices and unique social commentary, as almost every episode over the past 12 years, except this one, has something in there to appreciate. However, I do personally wish it would choose quality over quantity, as there are times that episodes feel somewhat undercooked, unnecessary, and out of place when put on the same shelf as its most impressive pieces. So that's enough from me. What did you think of Black Mirror's latest season? Is it better than ever, in deep decline, refreshingly different, or more of the same? Let me know in the comment section. Well, if you've made it this far, firstly, thank you for watching. But if you could now give the video a like, possibly even leave a comment and click on that subscribe button, it will encourage that mysterious algorithm to do its thing. And if you want to support the channel personally, you can check out my Patreon.